Hey, what's good, y'all? Sam Boy here. I wanted to change up the scenery a little bit. Like everybody else, I've been cooped up a little bit too long. Been a little stir crazy. And this melanin has a constant desire to quench its thirst with the sun's rays, and so I need to oblige. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit more digestible, a shorter format, because most of my content tends to lean on the longer side, and I don't think I have enough stuff at the shorter end. So this is my first foray, or a foray, into creating this more short form videos. So a lot of crazy shit happened in 2020. Especially crazy things came together. But there was a particular revelation that I had. And not even so much a revelation, I should say, more of a reinforcement. A reinforcement of an assumption that one has, but I would always try to make excuses for, or try to give an explanation for, not really accept for what it is. And it's this, that no matter what systems you have in place, no matter what values you hold, no matter what laws there are, it comes down to whoever has the power, whoever has the authority to enforce those values, enforce those laws. And to discuss this issue, I want to bring up the rapper Mystikal, the Me Too movement, liberals versus progressives, and Realpolitik. And that's real, the word real-politik with a K instead of a C at the end. Now, starting off with Mystikal, he is a New Orleans-based rapper who was coming up in the mid-90s to the early 2000s, culminating in the peak of his career with hits like Danger and Back Your Ass Up. In 2003, he would be accused by his hairstylist at the time of forcing them to perform oral sex on Mystikal and two bodyguards. Mystikal pleaded guilty to these crimes and would end up serving 6 years in prison, being released in 2010. Naturally, he would try to revive his career and would have moderate success reintegrating himself into the industry and society at large, until 2016, when he was accused of sexual battery, this time by a different victim, whose relationship to him I'm not sure of. He ended up turning himself into authorities in 2017 before serving 18 months, about a year and a half, in prison, and being released on bond in 2019. Well, in the latter part of 2020, a story that you may not have heard, the district attorney in that case dropped those charges stemming from the 2016 allegation, after additional evidence and information was submitted to a grand jury who, I forget the exact terminology. There's always specific terminology in legal cases and whatnot, but essentially they said that they could not convict him or return a vote of confidence in the allegations by the victim, essentially showing that Mystikal was true to his word, as far as we know, in not repeating that behavior. Now let's jump over to another story that happened around the same time as Mystikal's, that I discovered through the Innocence Project, which is an organization that is concerned with getting innocent people out of jail. Termaine Hicks was a black man, is a black man, who was working as a manager at a fast food restaurant when he heard a woman in distress in a nearby alleyway. Being the upstanding man that he is, and wanting no good deed to go unpunished, he decided to go and help out this woman. Police arrived on the scene and, as you can probably guess, completely misread the situation and decided that if something wasn't broken, that it needed to be. And they shot Termaine Hicks in the back 3 times. Now, as far as I know, he has not been paralyzed from that incident, but the officers did lie under oath about the situation, and Termaine was sentenced to 25 years in prison. In the latter part of 2020 as well, we learned that those charges had been dropped, and Termaine was released from prison after serving no less than 19 of those 25 years. I bring up these 2 cases because they highlight ways in which this system got shit right and got shit wrong. You have a situation where a man who had some level of wealth, fame, and power and authority over others misused it in one of the worst ways that you possibly could. Paid for that crime and got out and made a promise to himself and to others, or at least made a promise to others, that he was not going to break bad, right? Again. And for many people, that is what should happen. People should be given second chances. People should be given an opportunity to show that they changed their behavior, they understand what they did was wrong, and that they can be better people. At the same time, when somebody seems to commit the same fucked up behavior, it's also very much in my mentality and my values to say, yeah, fuck them. Then to come to find out that this is a way in which the system, either from whether it really was just getting that extra information, if the victim was straight, I don't know if the victim was straight out, lying, or in what way they could have misread the situation, or what the circumstances were. But it took several years later for the revelation that he had not actually broken his promise, and he had actually stuck true to his word and had accepted the punishment that he knew was going to come anyway. Not just in having to serve time, but also the social stigma and losing his career for the final time. And then you have a situation like Termaine Hicks, who was just a regular working class citizen, a black man, and was trying to be a good Samaritan and was punished for the deed. And again, I don't know all the details of that case. I know as much that the officers in the case lied about his role, Termaine Hicks' role in it, and whether it was just from seeing him as being less worthy because he was black, or because he was just a lower working class manager at a fast food place, and cops are automatically, they're taken more seriously. The word is taken more seriously in all situations, especially the court of law. But it took a huge portion of a man's lifetime for him to be freed. And I'm not even aware of any type of restitution that he's going to get from that, nor Mystikal. And again, this highlights again that no matter what laws you have on the books, no matter what values are in the culture, or that it all comes down to the individuals. Whatever individuals are in power or have exerting influence, whether it is law enforcement, whether it is a lawyer, whether it is an employer, you know what I'm saying, or in another case, if it is the victim. Because for so long, victims of crimes, especially women that have accused men of sexual related crimes, have been demonized, and everything has been done to discredit them. This brings us to the Me Too movement, which, as many of y'all might be aware, was centered on getting victims' stories out. And no matter how old a person's alleged crimes were, that they have to, you have to pay for that, and you have to be held accountable for that. It doesn't matter if it's something that happened last week and it did somebody who was of equal power dynamics, or something that was done decades ago to somebody whom you had authority over, and your word would be taken more seriously than theirs. Well, this brings up a key distinction between liberals and progressives, but it's actually not simply about are progressives more honest than liberals. People can be dishonest, people can play whatever cards that they want. This more so ties into the fact that liberals understand power dynamics better than progressives do, point blank. Progressives, and as somebody who identifies as a progressive and would be considered progressive on many cultural and political issues, there is a tendency for us to be portrayed as being idealistic and always agitating the status quo, when the truth is that oftentimes some of our values actually are the status quo, and we're simply being gaslighted. In the nomination of Joe Biden, first of all, as the Democratic candidate for presidency, after he and the establishment and the other runners in the Democratic primary circled the wagons around Biden, pulling the rug out from under Bernie. And there will be plenty of people who will say that, Bernie couldn't have won in the national contest, despite the fact that Trump had openly expressed when he ran against Hillary that the only person he was afraid of was Bernie, because he recognized that Bernie is a real fucking populist, and that his ideas, which would later become mainstream, would be wildly popular. But in any case, what we saw in the culmination of the primary was the calculation made that the only person who could possibly beat Trump, which was considered the main priority by many of those on the liberal side and as well as the left-wing side, and we needed to push them through, no matter what. Because it is well known that Trump had dozens of accusations and has even admitted to lots of sexually improper behavior against women, and there were calls for him to be impeached on that, or for him to face trial for that. There were calls for him to be removed from office, simply based on these allegations, right? That while you have open allegations of sexual assault, that you cannot possibly run for president, and that if you are president, you need to be removed from power. Well, what we saw when Joe Biden's allegations were resurfaced, which was no less than 8, including one of a former staffer by the name of Tara Reid in the early 90s, it was given some attention in the mainstream media, but then was quickly on the hush-hush. and suppressed. Power dynamics and calculated moves. Realpolitik. The term realpolitik that I mentioned earlier, really what it means, it's doing whatever you have to do to secure political power. Doing whatever is most effective for getting the goal of securing power. Because if you don't have that place of authority, how are you supposed to possibly be able to enact the values and policies that you believe in? Because no matter what rules are on the books, no matter what systems we put in place, no matter how we organize ourselves, if a person decides to be dishonest or is swayed by different biases, or another really interesting thing, this is just a human thing, you will get a worse sentence from a judge if they are experiencing hangry, if they skipped breakfast, or if their blood sugar is getting low. Hell, in the case of your lawyers, they may not even be trying so hard. They may not try as hard, saying disregard the fact that many lawyers are already overburdened and they prioritize their clients whom will actually, pay them what they're owed on time. And that's really the revelation, that I said came to, not even so much a revelation, but just a reinforcement of a value, which, because I am somebody that has oftentimes believed that, no, we can change the systems, we can agitate the status quo, we can push things in that direction, we can persuade people, yada, 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 which is true to some degree, if those people actually are on board with those changes, those possible changes in the first place. But if you have anti-racism, anti-bias laws in the books, or if you have a supposed culture of being anti-bigoted or anti-racist or anti-misogynist, but the person who is actually in charge of calling the shots isn't, or if their blood sugar is low, or if they miss breakfast, or if they stub their toe, to say it all the way to sentencing, you could find yourself in a much more fucked up situation than you should be in. It just reinforces the idea that some people simply have to be wrested from power, that they will never willingly give it up, but that they have to be replaced because their shortcomings and the ways in which they fall short as a human being or as a figure of authority or as an expert or whatever has been so consistently flawed, or flawed in monumental ways that it's caused such severe damage to other people's lives that no system can fix it. And there can be no real restitution for the damage that they've done to others. Yeah, that's it. So, just wanted to drop in something a little bit shorter, a little more digestible. Hope y'all enjoy it. And Samboy out. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.